Millennials have an average of $28,000 in debt, and the biggest source isn't student loans. It may seem like student loans and millennials are inextricably linked, but a new survey shows that education bills are not the leading source of debt among this generation. Millennials, defined here as ages 23 to 38, have racked up an average of $27,900 in personal debt, excluding mortgages, according to Northwestern Mutual's 2019 Planning and Progress study. The biggest source of debt? Credit card bills. And that's a troubling trend, Chantal Bonneau, a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual, tells CNBC Make It. One issue that a lot of millennials have is that they have not wanted to sacrifice their lifestyle, even though they have student loans or lower incomes. Bonneau says, that has left us in this spot where they've accumulated a significant amount of credit card debt. That's especially concerning because it's important to save for future financial goals, such as buying a home or building a retirement fund while you're young. But because millennials are balancing both student loans and credit card debt, the likelihood that millennials are prioritizing retirement in any meaningful way as an overall generation seems unlikely, Bonneau says. The average paycheck only has the same purchasing power it did 40 years ago, a Pew Research report found. Almost two-thirds of millennials say they're living paycheck to paycheck, and only 38% feel financially stable, according to Schwab's 2019 Modern Wealth Report. Student loans are also a factor. The number of households with student loan debt doubled from 1998 to 2016, Pew Research Center found. The median amount of loan debt millennials carried was $19,000, significantly higher than Gen Xers' balance of $12,800 at the same age. Millennials have an average of $28,000 in debt, and the biggest source isn't student loans. It may seem like student loans and millennials are inextricably linked, but a new survey shows that education bills are not the leading source of debt among this generation. Millennials, defined here as ages 23 to 38, have racked up an average of $27,900 in personal debt, excluding mortgages, according to Northwestern Mutual's 2019 Planning and Progress study. The biggest source of debt? Credit card bills. And that's a troubling trend, Chantal Bonneau, a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual, tells CNBC Make It. One issue that a lot of millennials have is that they have not wanted to sacrifice their lifestyle, even though they have student loans or lower incomes, Bonneau says. That has left us in this spot where they've accumulated a significant amount of credit card debt. That's especially concerning because it's important to save for future financial goals, such as buying a home or building a retirement fund while you're young. But because millennials are balancing both student loans and credit card debt, the likelihood that millennials are prioritizing retirement in any meaningful way as an overall generation seems unlikely, Bonneau says. The average paycheck only has the same purchasing power it did 40 years ago, a Pew Research report found. Almost two-thirds of millennials say they're living paycheck to paycheck, and only 38% feel financially stable, according to Schwab's 2019 Modern Wealth Report. Student loans are also a factor. The number of households with student loan debt doubled from 1998 to 2016, Pew Research Center found. The median amount of loan debt millennials carried was $19,000, significantly higher than Gen Xers' balance of $12,800 at the same age. Death toll rises from mysterious lung illnesses linked to vaping, prompting CDC to sound alarm on e-cigarettes. At least 3 people have died from a mysterious lung illness doctors believe may be caused by vaping, a rising public health worry that has U.S. and state officials perplexed, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said. A new patient in Indiana died, in addition to the previously reported deaths in Illinois and Oregon. Ileana Arias, CDC's acting deputy director of non-infectious diseases, told reporters on a media call. Officials are investigating a 4th death, she said. The CDC is urging people to avoid using e-cigarettes amid the outbreak. Federal health officials are reviewing 450 possible cases linked to vaping across 33 states, including the 215 cases it has previously reported. It's unclear what exactly is causing the disease, officials said. Until they have more information, the CDC is urging consumers not to buy e-cigarette products off the street, the agency said. Patients in many cases experience gradual symptoms, including breathing difficulty, shortness of breath, and chest pain, before being hospitalized. Some people reported vomiting and diarrhea, or other symptoms such as fever or fatigue. My stance is, overall, as a lung doctor, I don't want anybody putting anything into their lungs, but I do think there is something going on, and there is one common thing making all these lungs react, said Dr. Dixie Harris, a pulmonologist with Intermountain Healthcare in Salt Lake City. Doctors considered it might be related to vaping. All of Harris's patients said they vaped. Some used nicotine. Some used cannabinoids, including THC or CBD. Others use both, making it even more difficult for doctors to pinpoint a culprit. Death toll rises from mysterious lung illnesses linked to vaping, prompting CDC to sound alarm on e-cigarettes. At least 3 people have died from a mysterious lung illness doctors believe may be caused by vaping, a rising public health worry that has U.S. and state officials perplexed, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said. A new patient in Indiana died, in addition to the previously reported deaths in Illinois and Oregon. Ileana Arias, CDC's acting deputy director of non-infectious diseases, told reporters on a media call. Officials are investigating a 4th death, she said. The CDC is urging people to avoid using e-cigarettes amid the outbreak. Federal health officials are reviewing 450 possible cases linked to vaping across 33 states, including the 215 cases it has previously reported. It's unclear what exactly is causing the disease, officials said. Until they have more information, the CDC is urging consumers not to buy e-cigarette products off the street, the agency said. Patients in many cases experienced gradual symptoms, including breathing difficulty, shortness of breath, and chest pain, before being hospitalized. Some people reported vomiting and diarrhea, or other symptoms such as fever or fatigue. My stance is, overall, as a lung doctor, I don't want anybody putting anything into their lungs, but I do think there is something going on, and there is one common thing making all these lungs react, said Dr. Dixie Harris, a pulmonologist with Intermountain Healthcare in Salt Lake City. Doctors considered it might be related to vaping. All of Harris's patients said they vaped. Some used nicotine. Some used cannabinoids, including THC or CBD. Others used both, making it even more difficult for doctors to pinpoint a culprit.
Bill Gates gave away $35 billion this year, but didn't see his personal net worth drop. The founder of Microsoft added $16 billion to his net worth this year, despite giving away over $35 billion to charity, according to Bloomberg. That brings Gates' total wealth to $106 billion, the second largest fortune in the world, behind Amazon's Jeff Bezos. We're not, in some defensive posture where we're mostly in cash or anything like that, Gates told Bloomberg Television on Tuesday. The strategy that's been used on the investments is to be over 60% in equities. Having 60%, in this case $60 billion in stocks or index funds, is an aggressive investment strategy for someone of Gates' wealth. The average family office portfolio in North America had about 32% of its assets in stocks in 2018, according to a Camden Wealth Report. Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate. But Gates said he is bullish on the United States and global businesses. You can make the case that the yields aren't very high, but that's true against all asset classes, said Gates. T-bills 10-year are well less than 2%, so there's reason to think absolute returns for the next decade will be less than they have been for the last several decades. The U.S. is currently in a decade-long expansion, the longest in history. Gates' charitable work is primarily done through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The foundation works to tackle inequality in health and education around the world, the climate crisis, and world hunger. The organization works domestically on ensuring all students graduate from high school. Financial advisors warn that just because a billionaire favors a particular allocation, it doesn't mean all investors should follow suit. Bill Gates gave away $35 billion this year, but didn't see his personal net worth drop. The founder of Microsoft added $16 billion to his net worth this year, despite giving away over $35 billion to charity, according to Bloomberg. That brings Gates' total wealth to $106 billion, the second largest fortune worth this year, despite giving away over $35 billion to charity, according to Bloomberg. That brings Gates' total wealth to $106 billion, the second largest fortune in the world, behind Amazon's Jeff Bezos. We're not, in some defensive posture where we're mostly in cash or anything like that, Gates told Bloomberg Television on Tuesday. The strategy that's been used on the investments is to be over 60% in equities. Having 60%, in this case $60 billion in stocks or index funds, is an aggressive investment strategy for someone of Gates' wealth. The average family office portfolio in North America had about 32% of its assets in stocks in 2018, according to a Camden Wealth Report. Typically, investors would be more diversified across asset classes like government bonds and real estate. But Gates said he is bullish on the United States and global businesses. You can make the case that the yields aren't very high, but that's true against all asset classes, said Gates. T-bills 10-year are well less than 2%, so there's reason to think absolute returns for the next decade will be less than they have been for the last several decades. The U.S. is currently in a decade-long expansion, the longest in history. Gates' charitable work is primarily done through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The foundation works to tackle inequality in health and education around the world, the climate crisis, and world hunger. The organization works domestically on ensuring all students graduate from high school. Financial advisors warn that just because a billionaire favors a particular allocation, it doesn't mean all investors should follow suit.
Investors should follow suit.
Walmart likely discriminated against female workers in stores, Wall Street Journal says. Walmart likely discriminated against dozens of female workers in its stores, according to a report from the Wall Street Journal. The report, published last Tuesday, cited memos from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission that said there is reasonable cause to believe that for 178 women, Walmart paid them less, denied them promotions, or both, because of their gender. It said the charges involved workers in over 30 states. Walmart, however, says many of the claims are vague, and that it has been looking to resolve the cases which the EEOC has had since 2012. We have told the EEOC that we are willing to engage in the conciliatory process with all the cases, said Randy Hargrove, a Walmart spokesman. In the vast majority of them, the EEOC's reasonable findings are vague and nonspecific, even though we have asked the EEOC to provide details on their findings. We have urged the Commission to move forward on them for years, Hargrove added. The allegations from these plaintiffs are more than 15 years old and are not representative of the positive experiences millions of women have had working at Walmart. Walmart will continue to respect the confidential nature of the process with the EEOC and will not be commenting on the individual cases. According to the Journal, the EEOC is asking Walmart and the women to find a just resolution of this matter, or the group could file a lawsuit against Walmart. The EEOC's push to make Walmart act comes as workers have been seeking damages from the biggest private employer in the U.S., with 1.5 million workers across the country for almost 2 decades. Walmart likely discriminated against female workers in stores, Wall Street Journal says. Walmart likely discriminated against dozens of female workers in its stores, according to a report from the Wall Street Journal. The report, published last Tuesday, cited memos from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission that said there is reasonable cause to believe that for 178 women, Walmart paid them less, denied them promotions, or both, because of their gender. It said the charges involved workers in over 30 states. Walmart, however, says many of the claims are vague, and that it has been looking to resolve the cases which the EEOC has had since 2012. We have told the EEOC that we are willing to engage in the conciliatory process with all the cases, said Randy Hargrove, a Walmart spokesman. In the vast majority of them, the EEOC's reasonable findings are vague and nonspecific, even though we have asked the EEOC to provide details on their findings. We have urged the Commission to move forward on them for years, Hargrove added. The allegations from these plaintiffs are more than 15 years old and are not representative of the positive experiences millions of women have had working at Walmart. Walmart will continue to respect the confidential nature of the process with the EEOC and will not be commenting on the individual cases. According to the Journal, the EEOC is asking Walmart and the women to find a just resolution of this matter, or the group could file a lawsuit against Walmart. The EEOC's push to make Walmart act comes as workers have been seeking damages from the biggest private employer in the U.S., with 1.5 million workers across the country for almost 2 decades. Do cats cause schizophrenia? Schizophrenia, any of several severe mental disorders having such symptoms as hallucinations, disorganized thinking, withdrawal from reality, or bizarre behavior, is produced by premature deterioration of the brain. This deterioration is usually a product of genetic predisposition combined with stress, but it can be accelerated by external diseases or parasites. Schizophrenia affects only 1% of the population, although many people are predisposed to it, but are never exposed to enough stress to exhibit any symptoms. How could cats possibly play a role in something so complicated? Well, as it turns out, one of those potentially accelerating parasites can be found in our feline friends. Toxoplasma gondii, T. gondii for short, is a parasite that lives in raw meat and some garden soils. Cats become infected with it through consuming outdoor prey, and then can pass it along to humans through their feces and litter boxes. So, does owning a cat make you susceptible to schizophrenia? That's just the thing. Scientists still aren't sure. Though some studies have been done, none has been conclusive. The current consensus is that there is a definite correlation between cats and schizophrenia, but it is unlikely that the animals are a causal factor in the development of the disorder. Basically, cats probably don't actually cause someone to develop schizophrenia. The T. gondii found in some cats can cause cysts that accelerate premature brain deterioration. But such deterioration can happen only in individuals who are predisposed to schizophrenia. Do cats cause schizophrenia? Schizophrenia, any of several severe mental disorders having such symptoms as hallucinations, disorganized thinking, withdrawal from reality, or bizarre behavior, is produced by premature deterioration of the brain. This deterioration is usually a product of genetic predisposition combined with stress. But it can be accelerated by external diseases or parasites. Schizophrenia affects only 1% of the population, although many people are predisposed to it, but are never exposed to enough stress to exhibit any symptoms. How could cats possibly play a role in something so complicated? Well, as it turns out, one of those potentially accelerating parasites can be found in our feline friends. Toxoplasma gondii, T. gondii for short, is a parasite that lives in raw meat and some garden soils. Cats become infected with it through consuming outdoor prey, and then can pass it along to humans through their feces and litter boxes. So, does owning a cat make you susceptible to schizophrenia? That's just the thing. Scientists still aren't sure. Though some studies have been done, none has been conclusive. The current consensus is that there is a definite correlation between cats and schizophrenia, but it is unlikely that the animals are a causal factor in the development of the disorder. Basically, cats probably don't actually cause someone to develop schizophrenia. The T. gondii found in some cats can cause cysts that accelerate premature brain deterioration. But such deterioration can happen only in individuals who are predisposed to schizophrenia.
U.S. Fed signals rate cut as market odds fluctuate. Expectations are high for the U.S. Federal Reserve to deliver the year's second interest rate cut on Wednesday as members conclude a hotly anticipated policy meeting in Washington. With the meeting underway, central bank officials on Tuesday also moved for the first time in a decade to prevent market fluctuations from pushing short-term interest rates beyond the Fed's control. U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has sent strong signals in recent weeks that a rate cut is coming, vowing that policymakers stand ready to act as appropriate amid significant risks to the economy, notably President Donald Trump's trade wars. Meanwhile, the New York Fed on Tuesday announced emergency measures to pump billions into the banking system through arrangements known as repurchase agreements in order to bring down short-term lending rates. The Fed cut the key policy rate in July for the first time in more than a decade after 4 rate hikes last year, putting the range at 2.0 to 2.25%. But economic data in recent weeks has complicated the picture, showing firming inflation along with rising wages and consumer spending, prompting some to say fears for the world's largest economy may be overdone. The Fed also reported Tuesday that U.S. manufacturing, which had been hit hard by Trump's trade wars, had recovered somewhat in August, driving U.S. industrial output up more than economists had expected. Oxford Economics estimates the Fed will cut 3 more times this year, leaving the Fed's benchmark lending rate a full percentage point lower at the end of the year, erasing all of the 2018 rate hikes. U.S. Fed signals rate cut as market odds fluctuate. Expectations are high for the U.S. Federal Reserve to deliver the year's second interest rate cut on Wednesday as members conclude a hotly anticipated policy meeting in Washington. With the meeting underway, central bank officials on Tuesday also moved for the first time in a decade to prevent market fluctuations from pushing short-term interest rates beyond the Fed's control. U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has sent strong signals in recent weeks that a rate cut is coming, vowing that policymakers stand ready to act as appropriate amid significant risks to the economy, notably President Donald Trump's trade wars. Meanwhile, the New York Fed on Tuesday announced emergency measures to pump billions into the banking system through arrangements known as repurchase agreements in order to bring down short-term lending rates. The Fed cut the key policy rate in July for the first time in more than a decade, after 4 rate hikes last year, putting the range at 2.0 to 2.25%. But economic data in recent weeks has complicated the picture, showing firming inflation along with rising wages and consumer spending, prompting some to say fears for the world's largest economy may be overdone. The Fed also reported Tuesday that U.S. manufacturing, which had been hit hard by Trump's trade wars, had recovered somewhat in August, driving U.S. industrial output up more than economists had expected. Oxford Economics estimates the Fed will cut 3 more times this year, leaving the Fed's benchmark lending rate a full percentage point lower at the end of the year, erasing all of the 2018 rate hikes.